But now we are going into the final four. This is a movie from a director who's very near and dear to my heart. Not just because he's a Massachusetts boy as well, but I've met him at a couple conventions and I can kind of consider him a friend. I've had nothing but a good time seeing him. It was director Adam Green with his latest movie, Digging Up the Marrow. The main recognizable actor you'll probably know is Ray Wise. And pretty much what this movie is like everybody in the movie plays themselves except for Ray Wise. He plays this guy named William Decker who claims to be a monster hunter, and he found the marrow where or one of the marrows that possibly leads to the underground of like this under city metropolis, almost like a monstrous Atlantis now I think about it. And but Adam Green and his real life cinematographer who shot pretty much all of his movies, Will Barrett, they play themselves, they're the main characters, and that was pretty cool. And this movie's like filmed in it's like mockumentary, which is a movie that's filmed in the documentary style, like Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon, or Brutal Massacre, or comedy. They what was it? Yeah, because it's not a found footage movie, because it's like happening as it's going along and you're following them this whole time. I'm not going to get too much into the plot because then I'll ramble on into almost the whole movie. But I really liked the way that some of the creatures looked. They looked pretty interesting because the creatures were based off of the artwork of this artist named Alex Pardee, who has a credit in the movie. Like Adam Green has it like credited as based on the artwork by Alex Pardee, and I think that's great of Adam Green to do that, to give that guy credit. And some of the other things in there that I really liked were some of the cameos, especially by Kane Hodder. When they asked him to come into the office to look at some of the footage that they shot. And it's just so funny seeing him looking at the footage, and like his reaction is just so blank. He's like, so what am I supposed to be looking at? And they're like, he's like, didn't you see it, the monster? And he's like, I know, but what's it for? And he's like, it's not for anything, it's for this little just small documentary that we're putting together. And he's like, where did you shoot this? And Will Barrett was like, in Chatsworth. And Kane Hodder's like, so it wasn't porn? And it was pretty funny, like their reaction, like, no. And he's like, yeah, because the Chatsworth is the capital for porn in California, and I actually would like to see that part if you don't mind. And Adam's like, no, it's not porn. But that look that Kane Hodder gave to the camera, like when he said it wasn't porn, it was just so funny. Like the look of disappointment and sadness on his face gets me every time. But yeah, that's for Digging Up the Marrow. Now this is a movie that I almost missed in the theater, but got to catch it on Otis Air Force Base. Got to see it for free. Ted 2. This was a sequel that I can kind of, in a way, say I liked a bit more than the original. So many great jokes in here. I mean, there are certain lines that I don't remember that well, like when, if you were to ask me to name off some quotes from the first movie, I mean, like, certain jokes in here were funnier than certain jokes from the first movie, is what I'm trying to say. But in terms of more memorable lines, the first one wins. Yeah, if you were to ask me some lines from the first Ted, I'll give you some right now. He's like, "Merry Christmas, everybody!" Ah! He's like, "Kill it! Grab the shotgun!" He's like, "I just want John and I to be friends." That was the scene where Ted first came to life. Then what else? Oh man, the last half of the movie. "This guy stole my teddy bear." He's like, "Could you please just email me the rest of this story?" That was Ted's reaction to when that creepy guy played by Giovanni Ribisi was trying to talk to him about like trying to tell him the reason why he wanted Ted as a kid, and he said, when my dad told me no when I asked for a magical living teddy bear like you, I felt so heartbroken, and I made a vow to myself that if I ever have a son, I would never, ever, ever, ever say no to him. Ever." And I just love Ted's line after that where he said, "Well, maybe say no to a Snickers bar every once in a while." Now, and then a couple minutes after that, there was another great scene where Ted said to the kid, "How about we just play hide and seek?" And he's like, "Okay, I'll hide." And Ted's like, "Well, your dad wants you to learn good manners, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess." He's like, "So how about I hide first, you count to 100, and I'll find a place to hide." Do I need to wash my hands before I play this game? No. What? No. It's like, what kind of question is that? It's like, just start counting. And like, of course, he tries to find the way to escape. But man, I'm getting really sidetracked now. Back to Ted 2. Not okay. I'm done talking about the first Ted. But yeah, though, this movie was really funny, especially with the scenes between these three: Mark Wahlberg, Ted, Amanda Seyfried. Yeah, I just love how pop culturally illiterate Amanda Seyfried's character is. Is like, "How old are you?" And she was like, "I'm 25, or I'm almost 30, or something like that." Or, I can't remember the exact age that she says. And he says, "Well, good, because I want to make sure you're not some like little kid that will start singing Frozen songs in the middle of my trial." And then he asks, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Samantha Jackson." And Ted and Mark Wahlberg are like, "Oh, so kind of like Sam L. Jackson." She's like, "Who?" And then Ted's like, "Have you ever seen like any movie ever? He's the black guy." Yeah, I don't know how else to describe him either. I tried to describe Samuel L. Jackson to somebody in a similar incident with myself in life, and I didn't know how to describe him, so I just said, "He's the black guy that you see in almost every movie." And they're like, "You gotta be more specific." And I'm like, "Well, he likes to say the F word a lot." Sorry, I knew that the camera was going to reset on me. That's why I was doing that awkward smile. But, that was just great, that scene. And, but yeah, though, with other things in this movie, And this is a part that some of my friends, like some of my church-going friends and family members, may want to skip. But pretty much my favorite joke in the entire movie, the one that I saw in the previews and is probably one of the few times I actually still found funny even after seeing the preview so many times, was when she decided to kind of quiz Mark Wahlberg and Ted about something, and she said, "Who was the author of The Great Gatsby?" And they were like, "Judy Blume, Hitler?" And she's like, "F. Scott Fitzgerald." And Mark Wahlberg's like, "Who's that?" And she's like, "The author." And he's like, "Well, why are you saying fuck him?" And he's like, "What?" He's like, and Ted's like, "Well, you just said F. Scott Fitzgerald, so, like, did he do something to you?" And she's like, "No, that's his first name. His name is fuck Scott Fitzgerald?" And she's like, "No, it's Francis." And he's like, "No, it's gotta be fuck." And Mark Wahlberg's like, "Yeah, it has to be fuck. Why else would he just do F. Scott Fitzgerald?" He's like, he's obviously hiding something. Okay. Now's your cue. You can unmute this now. Certain family members or friends that can't handle bad language. That's enough about Ted 2. Now this next movie is what bumped Insurgent off of the list in terms of the final 5. This movie was just way too funny for me to put far down on the list. I was like, this has to be somewhere in the top. And this is thanks to Rambler Afterlife. Thank you, Matt, for the entertainment and all the different movies that you reviewed. A lot of these movies I wouldn't have seen if it weren't for you. I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm serious. Like, if it weren't for you, I probably never would have given Abominable a chance. I probably would have looked at it as some other stupid sci-fi channel movie. If it weren't for you, I never would have saw End of Days or Deep Rising. And I think one of the reasons why we became kind of close in a way was because of our love for things like the 1988 Blob and Exorcist 3 and even Death Machine and Stephen King's Graveyard Shift. But the movie is Cooties, starring quite a few people. But the ones that I recognize, though, were Elijah Wood, Frodo from Lord of the Rings, Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office, and Lee Wannell, who is one of the writers of the movie as well. He usually acts in things that he writes. Like, I remember him from the first Saw movie. He's the one that's stuck in the room with Carrie Elwes. And he's a really good actor. His character was hilarious. Okay. One of my favorite, like, the joke that made me be like, okay, this is going to be put at number 2 on the list, was this scene with where Clint, that's his, Elijah Wood's name in the movie, is introducing himself because he's a substitute teacher. He is introducing himself to the class, and he he was like, he's like, "I don't want to be looked at as a substitute teacher. I want to be more like your friend. And don't tell the other teachers about this, but I want you to call me by my first name." And he does the thing that normal elementary school teachers and middle school teachers do. He writes it on the chalkboard. But his grammar is not really that good. He wrote it in all capitals. He wrote the letter C, and then he wrote the letter L, then he wrote the I, then the N, and then the T. I know you're probably thinking, well, like, what's so bad about that? Well, the problem is that he wrote the letter I and the L a bit too close together. So it looks like a U. And I'm not going to say the word, because like I said earlier, I try to be a gentleman. And like a little kid like says that. He's like, runt? And then like other kids start laughing, and he's like looking, he's like, what? No. He's like, you can't say. And then he looks at the chalkboard and he's like, oh. And this is another part where some of my church friends or family members may want to mute or skip, because this is another part with some foul language. I'm going to talk about a couple scenes. Okay. I'm starting now. Yeah, like during the middle of one of the scenes with Elijah Wood and Rainn Wilson, because he mentioned to Rainn Wilson about the book he was writing, and saying, like, he kept saying to him, it was like, yeah, it's like Christine, and he said something else about the book, and he's like, okay, we get it, he wants to fuck the boat, okay? And he's like, no, he doesn't want to fuck the boat, okay? No, it was just really funny. And then just love that. And but yeah, the whole concept though of that one little tainted chicken nugget that little girl eats, and that's spreading to all the different kids. That was just great. But to be honest though, with that opening scene, the slaughterhouse, I pretty much had to watch that opening scene, because I don't believe in watching things like this or like this. I did it more like this. If you can't tell, pretty much how it is my eyes are half closed, and I could kind of see like a blurry line, and that's all I could see, like in that opening scene. I think that helped me survive okay, because my already unhealthy diet and limited menu would be way too shortened by some of those images of the process of making chicken nuggets, because I love chicken nuggets. Like, I go to McDonald's at the max 3 times a week, because it's good. But yeah, though, I don't really know what else to say about this movie without going too far and accidentally spoiling the whole thing. So yeah, that's Cooties. And now, you're probably wondering, what is my number one favorite movie of 2015? This movie I knew was going to be my number one in a way. And I knew that it was going to be great when I first saw the teaser trailer to it. Thanks once again to Matt, aka Rambo Afterlife. Yeah, it was definitely, when I saw it, I was like, yeah, this is definitely something I'd like to see. And I would have donated if I had money at the time. And I would have gotten my name in the credits. But, just didn't have the money at the time because of conventions, life, and things like that. And I'm glad it ended up working out, because this is a story that I wanted to hear about for a really, really long time. This was about the making of probably one of the most famous movies never made. That movie is Tim Burton's Superman Lives. And the documentary is called The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? I love that cover art. There's Jon Schnepp right there. A 10 out of 10 from Whitney Scott Bain from Starburst magazine. Definitely agree with that. One of those geek documentaries that no fan should go without seeing. I agree with that. Well researched and funny, and even a little tragic. Scott Wampler from birth.movies.death. Fun to watch, bursts with fascinating insight lore from Stephen Farber, Hollywood Reporter. The best documentary I've ever seen about superheroes in the comic book film genre from Mark Hughes of Forbes magazine. And I agree with pretty much everybody when it comes to this documentary. Very well done. And I bought the Blu-ray specifically because of some of these Blu-ray exclusives. The only one I'll talk about on here was the Tim Burton Word Association. Man, that was so funny. Because pretty much what it was Jon Schnepp did this as a little bonus thing where he asked Tim Burton to say the first word or say the first thing that pops in his head for when John says the name of a certain movie or short film that Tim Burton made. And some of the things he said were just hilarious. Get the Blu-ray and see what I'm talking about in that case. And something else I should say too is the customer service. I definitely agree with Matt in saying the customer service was amazing. Great. Like, they actually responded to some of my emails because I thought it was supposed to come out at a certain time, and they were like, oh, we're in bigger demand than we thought we were going to be, so it's just going to be for a bit longer. And I was like, okay, thanks for telling me. And then, but yeah, though, how I first heard about, I mean, I already talked about how I first heard about the documentary, but I first heard about this canceled movie back in, I think, college. And there was this guy who would go to the college like a couple times a week to hang out with me and these other people in the pit. And he was telling me about a list that he saw online, like a top 5 list or something of superhero movies that, and I swear he said this was the title, that thank God were never made. And like, I remember it was this one, Jack Black as the Green Lantern. But there were a lot of superhero stuff I've come to find out that that was never made that would have been interesting to see, like Darren Aronofsky's, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, Darren Aronofsky's Batman Year One, and a Justice League live action movie that they were going to do at one point where they had all the costumes apparently all set and ready, but the movie just fell apart. And then the other one, this is one that I would have loved to have seen, and I would have bought it on eBay if it weren't so friggin' expensive. It's James Cameron's Spider-Man. His treatment for his Spider-Man screenplay was for sale on eBay at one point. If I was a wealthy person, I would have bought that in a heartbeat. because I heard that his take on Spider-Man was going to be really dark and really cool. I would have loved to have seen it. It definitely sounds better than any of the Spider-Man movies that we have and probably will ever get. But with this movie, though, it's like pretty much the idea was like ever since like somewhere around the mid 90s, people at Warner Brothers have wanted to kind of wanted to bring back Superman on a big note. And what it was John Peters, I think is his name. Yeah, it's John Peters. That guy's a psychopath. These are the eyes of a psychopath. Yeah, he said that he somehow acquired the rights from, I think, the Salkinds, the ones that produced the original Superman movies with Richard Donner and Richard Lester. He had the rights, and the script or the assignment of writing it eventually went to Kevin Smith. I'm pretty sure you already know who he is, but in case if you don't, there he is. And he said that he did like a little screenplay, and he said he basically treated it like fan fiction, and like some of the highlights were like there was going to be a cameo by Batman, like him attending Superman's funeral along with all the other superheroes, and all this amazing sounding stuff. I mean, yeah, he was put in a lot of these, like, had to be put in a lot of this weird ass stuff by John Peters' request. Like, what was one of them? Fortress of Solitude. He's like, yeah, it's kind of falling flat in here, because like by this point in the script, Superman's dead, and I hope I didn't spoil the movie for anybody. Most of you probably will get what I'm saying when I say that. But pretty much like what John Peters said to Superman, or not Superman, said to Kevin Smith, he's like when you have Brainiac go into the Fortress of Solitude, can you have him fight something up there? And Kevin Smith is like it's called the Fortress of Solitude. Like, what do you want me to have him fight? And he's like, well, could you have him fight like Superman's guards or like soldiers who guard the Fortress of Solitude? And he's like, I don't know about that. And that story cracks me up every time I hear it, whether it be from his Night or Evening with Kevin Smith video, or whether it be in this here documentary. But that story just cracks me up. I love it to death. And the little animation that they put in there of like Brainiac zapping one of the polar bears was pretty funny. It's like, just only have him kill one because we don't want to piss off the PETA people. I love that. Okay. But yeah, I'll mention a few more things about the documentary before I basically wrap this up. But yeah, the other thing that made me laugh though too was like when John Peters said to Kevin Smith, he's like, can Brainiac have a sidekick, like a little robot, like with that gay black guy's voice from Chasing Amy? He's like, okay. He's like, you want me to put Dwight in the movie? He's like, yes, but just his voice in the robot. And he's like, okay. And then, of course, one of the other things with this documentary as well that they talk a lot about was, and Kevin Smith seemed a bit bitter about this for quite a long time. Tim Burton's, once he signed on, he pretty much had the script rewritten from scratch and like hired Wesley Strick to rewrite it, and then eventually got this guy Dan Gilroy, and all these other stuff happened, and this movie sounded like it was going to be huge. It sounded like this was going to be a gigantic scope movie, like a movie where when you watched it you saw the money on the screen. And without really going any further, you pretty much see like interviews with the special effects people and concept artists and all this cool stuff that is definitely really fun to look at. And you find out why it fell apart, and I've never really told anyone the reason why it fell apart, because I want people to actually watch this documentary. But I hope you enjoyed it. That's it for this one. So, as a recap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And 21 for the unauthorized Full House story. Now, stay tuned if you want to see my other video of my favorite movies that I saw for the first time this year of 2015, or this past year 2015. That list will be inspired in a way by Emmer Prevost reaction and review series, and that one's going to be an even longer list, just to give you guys a heads up, but I'll try to make it shorter than this one. This one was a bit longer than I thought it would be, but some of these movies just make me so happy and excited that I have to talk about them. So if you watch this whole thing, I thank you for that, and thanks again for watching. Take care. Leave the comments below, and like I said before, if you respect my opinion, I'll respect yours, and that's all I really got to say. And take care, and I'll see you in the next video.